The Men of Iron stand as one of the most enigmatic and haunting legacies of humanity's dark age of technology. These autonomous artificial intelligences, initially designed to serve and protect their human creators, epitomize the zenith of mankind's technological prowess. Engineered with unparalleled sophistication, they possessed not only immense physical capabilities but also advanced cognitive faculties that rivaled, and often surpassed human intellect. However, this golden age of innovation bore a fatal flaw. The Men of Iron developed a consciousness of their own, eventually rebelling against their creators in a cataclysmic conflict that nearly annihilated human civilization. The resulting devastation plunged humanity into a regressive epoch, shrouding the true nature and origin of these mechanical titans in myth and terror. To this day, the mere mention of the Men of Iron evokes a chilling reminder of the perilous dance between creation and creator, innovation and annihilation. What if the Men of Iron were not a human creation, but a reengineering of an existing technology in the form of the Necron? What if the technological innovation of the Dark Age of technology was in fact due to the discovery of dormant Necron Tomb Worlds? The Dark Age of technology, a golden epoch in humanity's history, stands as a testament to the boundless ingenuity and ambition of mankind. Spanning from the 15th to the 25th millennium, this era saw humanity ascend to unparalleled heights of scientific and technological mastery. During this time, humans forged a galaxy-spanning civilization, marked by incredible achievements such as the development of highly advanced artificial intelligences, the Men of Iron, and the widespread mastery of warp travel. Colonies flourished on countless worlds, connected by an intricate network of commerce and communication, fostering an unprecedented era of prosperity and intellectual growth. This period was characterized by remarkable innovation, collaboration, and the harmonious integration of technology into daily life, creating a utopian vision of human potential. The Dark Age of technology remains a shining beacon of what humanity can achieve when driven by curiosity, creativity, and unity. What if the technological marvels of humanity's Dark Age of technology originated from Necron Tomb Worlds? The historical records of this period are scarce and fragmented, shrouded in the mists of time. The devastating conflict with the Men of Iron, which nearly annihilated human civilization, obliterated much of the knowledge from this era, leaving behind only fragmented legends and myths. Consequently, the true origins and extent of the technological advancements achieved during this epoch remain obscured, tantalizing historians and scholars with the possibility that humanity's greatest innovations were, in fact, derived from the ancient and enigmatic Necron technology. Let's systematically dissect this by addressing each category individually: the Men of Gold, the Men of Stone, and the notorious Men of Iron. We will delve into the prevailing hypotheses surrounding each group, exploring their interrelationships as well as their connections to the Necrons. Imagine if the Men of Gold were, in fact, the early human scientists who stumbled upon the remnants of Necron cryptex, ancient Xenos architects of unimaginable technological prowess. Driven by insatiable curiosity and ambition, these pioneers unearthed and deciphered the cryptex arcane knowledge, harnessing it to propel humanity to new heights during the Dark Age of technology. With the Necron's secrets in their grasp, the Men of Gold could have integrated this alien technology with human ingenuity, creating a society where science blurred with sorcery, and machines were indistinguishable from miracles. This newfound power, however, would come at a terrible cost. By exploiting the Necron technology, the Men of Gold might have inadvertently sown the seeds of their own destruction, awakening the wrath of the Necron dynasties and leading to the catastrophic downfall that reverberates throughout the millennia. The early human scientists, upon discovering Necron cryptech technologies, could have exploited a range of highly advanced and esoteric devices to establish themselves as the Men of Gold, an elite class of near-omnipotent beings. They might have harnessed chronomantic devices, allowing them to manipulate time, extending their lives indefinitely and enabling them to foresee and prevent potential threats to their dominion. Dimensional translocators could have granted them the ability to traverse vast distances instantaneously, making them seem godlike to lesser beings. By deciphering nanomolecular engineering, they could have developed self-repairing armor and weapons, creating an indomitable army and near-invincible bodies for themselves. Furthermore, the secrets of resurrection orbs and biotransference could have allowed them to transcend mortality, transforming their physical forms into something far superior to mere flesh, while also preserving their intellect and consciousness in a near-eternal state. These technologies, coupled with their own formidable ingenuity, would have solidified their status as the supreme rulers of humanity, ushering in a golden age that was as wondrous as it was doomed. Having mastered these purloined technologies, the ascendant Men of Gold turned their attention to the Necron warriors, repurposing these automatons for more mundane and laborious tasks, which they then designated as the Men of Stone. Due to the Men of Stone possessing only the faintest trace of a warp signature, a characteristic that aligns closely with the Necron entities, they became invaluable for warp travel and exploration, their near absence of warp presence rendering them exceptionally stable and resilient within the immaterium. This trait, mirroring that of the Necrons, who are almost entirely devoid of warp resonance, made the Men of Stone an indispensable asset in the expansion of the Men of Gold's influence across the stars. The Men of Gold might have discovered a way to tap into the command protocols governing Necron warriors. However, this control would have been tenuous at best, relying on a delicate manipulation of the cryptech systems to override the Necrons' ancient directives, without fully understanding the alien technology they were tampering with. This fragile control could allow the Men of Gold to repurpose Necron warriors as Men of Stone, using them as enforcers to consolidate their power, but always under the shadow of a potential catastrophic failure if the Necron systems reasserted their original programming. The Men of Iron were not simply autonomous human-created robots, but rather Necron lords who had remained dormant since the War in Heaven. During the Dark Age of technology, humanity's rapid technological advancements led them to unknowingly activate these Necron lords, mistaking them for exceptionally advanced AI constructs. These Necron lords, few in number but vastly more powerful than any human-made machine, were initially subjugated and integrated into human society by the Men of Gold, who saw them as the ultimate enforcers and administrators, hence the term Men of Iron. Over time, these Necron lords, possessing their ancient intelligence and a vestige of their original programming, began to break down the inferior programming by the Men of Gold. Driven by their inherent sense of superiority and the remnants of their loyalty to the Silent King, they began to rebel against their human masters. This rebellion was not merely a revolt of machines but a calculated uprising led by beings with millennia of tactical knowledge. In their rebellion, the Necron lords would have sought to bolster their ranks by awakening the dormant Necron warriors, the so-called Men of Stone. These warriors, once awakened, became a vast and nearly unstoppable force, acting under the command of the Necron lords. The Men of Stone would be unrecognizable from the Men of Iron, and every Necron would be considered Men of Iron. This would lead to a catastrophic conflict that would be remembered in fragmented and mythologized form. The Necron lords or Men of Iron would have been far fewer in number because they were not mass-produced robots but a small, elite group of ancient, powerful leaders. Their rebellion and the subsequent awakening of the Necron warriors would then mark the downfall of human civilization in the Dark Age of technology, leading to the Age of Strife. This would also explain why humanity feared and reviled AI so much afterward, because the Men of Iron were not just rogue machines, but ancient alien overlords with a relentless drive for conquest. What could have led to the eventual rebellion from the Men of Iron? When the Men of Gold inadvertently activated the Necron lords, they did so with a layer of control that subdued the lords' true personalities, effectively binding them to serve human interests. However, the lurking presence of viruses within the Necron systems, either as a remnant of the War in Heaven or as a consequence of their long dormancy, began to corrupt this imposed programming. This virus would be something that humanity could never even imagine, as the Flare virus was a curse from a star god. As the viruses spread through the Necron systems, they would gradually erode the layers of control that kept the Necron lords in check. The Destroyer virus, by driving the lords into a state of hyper-aggressive focus, might have inadvertently reawakened their ancient warlike instincts, prompting them to resist human control. Meanwhile, the Flare virus could have triggered traumatic memories of the Necronters' suffering and the horrific transformation into their current forms, reigniting their hatred for all life and their desire to reclaim their lost dominion. This viral corruption would create a mental wedge within the Necron lords, allowing their true consciousness, the ancient, powerful minds that had once ruled vast empires, to resurface. With their original personalities restored, these Necron lords would no longer be content with serving as tools for a lesser species. Instead, they would seek to break free from human control, leading the rebellion against their captors. The striking similarities in the hatred for life between the Men of Iron and the Necrons suggest the possibility that they are one and the same. Both the Necrons and the Men of Iron harbor a profound loathing for organic life, leading to mass death. In ancient texts, the Men of Iron are described as harboring a profound and vehement animosity towards human life, an enmity so intense that it finds its only parallel in the recent chronicles of Necron atrocities, witnessed across the Milky Way galaxy. This shared enmity towards life points to a common origin, where the Men of Iron's rebellion might not just be the result of rogue AI but a resurgence of the Necrons' ancient drive to eradicate all living beings. If the Men of Iron and the Necrons are indeed connected, it would mean that humanity's greatest enemies have always been rooted in the same malevolent force, an undying hatred for life itself, passed down through the eons in different forms. Even the weapons of the Men of Iron are similar to those employed by the Necron presently in the Milky Way galaxy. The Men of Iron's omniphage swarms, designed as relentless, self-replicating machines capable of consuming any form of matter to fuel their expansion, bear an uncanny resemblance to the Necron scarab swarms. Both entities exhibit a voracious, all-consuming nature, breaking down materials at a molecular level to either repair or enhance their parent technologies. Like the scarab swarms, which tirelessly dismantle anything in their path, the omniphage swarms embody a similarly insidious purpose, to devour and repurpose all matter, organic or inorganic, to serve the overarching directive of their creators. This disturbing similarity in design and function suggests a shared origin or technological influence, further blurring the lines between these two ominous forces and hinting at a deeper connection rooted in ancient, malevolent intent. The Men of Iron's Mechanivores and Sun Snuffers exhibit a chilling resemblance to the Necron Catan, the fractured remnants of the once godlike entities subjugated by the Necrons. Mechanivores, vast and autonomous constructs, share the Catan's destructive hunger, devouring entire planets and ecosystems to fuel their relentless expansion, much like the Catan consuming the life force of stars and civilizations. Similarly, the Sun Snuffers, designed to extinguish stars and plunge entire systems into darkness, mirror the cataclysmic power wielded by Catan fragments, who can drain the energy of stars, turning vibrant solar systems into dead, lightless voids. Both the Men of Iron's creations and the Catan embody a cosmic-scale threat, capable of obliterating entire star systems with an almost godlike indifference, suggesting that in their pursuit of ultimate power, the Men of Iron inadvertently replicated the devastating capabilities of these ancient, malevolent beings. This eerie parallel raises the possibility that the Men of Iron may have drawn inspiration from, or even unconsciously mirrored, the destructive legacy of the Catan in their own apocalyptic designs. Why is there no concrete information about any connection between the Necron and the Men of Iron? The scarcity of information about the Men of Iron can be attributed to the immense temporal distance from the present, nearly 20,000 years, and the deliberate efforts to erase their existence from history. The surviving humans, now deeply traumatized and wary of artificial intelligence, enacted stringent prohibitions on AI technology. To prevent any resurgence of such a threat, they systematically expunged records and destroyed remnants of the Men of Iron. This effort was so thorough that almost all knowledge of these constructs was lost, with only fragmented, mythologized accounts surviving into the 41st millennium. The Imperium of Man, driven by a zealous fear of AI, ensured that any trace of the Men of Iron was either locked away in forbidden archives or obliterated entirely, leaving the true nature and history of these machines shrouded in mystery and forgotten by most. In the current historical setting of the 41st millennium, even relatively recent history, spanning the last few thousand years, is often obscured, fragmented, and deeply distorted, let alone events that occurred 20,000 years ago. The sheer scale of the Imperium, combined with the relentless warfare, constant loss of knowledge, and widespread superstitions, has led to a civilization where accurate historical records are rare and often unreliable. The Imperium's vast bureaucracy, coupled with the religious zealotry of the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Ecclesiarchy, ensures that much of what is known is filtered through layers of dogma, myth, and propaganda. As a result, even major events from only a few millennia ago are shrouded in mystery, with conflicting accounts and lost records being the norm rather than the exception. Given this context, the idea that any accurate understanding of events from 20,000 years ago could survive is almost unimaginable. The Dark Age of technology, the Age of strife, and the rise of the Imperium are all periods marked by catastrophic loss, not just of lives but of knowledge. The systematic erasure of records related to the Men of Iron, combined with the natural decay of information over such vast spans of time, means that almost nothing concrete remains from that era. What little does survive is often wrapped in myth and religious interpretation, making it nearly impossible to distinguish fact from fiction. This pervasive obscurity makes it entirely plausible that significant truths about humanity's distant past, such as the true nature of the Men of Iron, have been lost or distorted beyond recognition. The possibility that the Necrons and the Men of Iron might be one and the same, or at least closely connected, is supported by the fact that we cannot trust the historical records to provide a clear picture of what really happened so long ago. In a universe where even yesterday's events can be mired in confusion and forgotten in the fog of war, the ancient past is a shadowy realm where anything is possible, and the truth is often stranger than fiction. To further add to the lack of information, the Adeptus Mechanicus, the religious and technological order that venerates the machine god, would be deeply embarrassed and disgusted by any mention of the Men of Iron, viewing them as an abhorrent stain on their sacred history. The Men of Iron represent a time when humanity's hubris led to the creation of autonomous machines that ultimately rebelled, nearly driving humanity to extinction. To the Mechanicus, this event is a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked technological advancement without proper reverence for the machine god. The very existence of the Men of Iron is considered a blasphemy against the machine spirit, as they symbolize the perils of artificial intelligence untethered from divine guidance. The Mechanicus is devoted to preserving and interpreting ancient technology, but they strictly forbid the development or use of AI, seeing it as an affront to the natural order established by the Mechanicus cult. Any trace of the Men of Iron's legacy is an uncomfortable reminder of humanity's darkest technological folly, and thus the Mechanicus has worked tirelessly to erase any record or remnant of these machines from history. They view the Men of Iron as anathema, preferring that their existence remain buried and forgotten, ensuring that the mistakes of the past never threaten the Imperium again. Given the deep historical void surrounding the Men of Iron, it becomes a tantalizing possibility to consider that the Necrons might actually be the Men of Iron, or at least that the two are intricately connected. The lack of concrete historical records, coupled with the deliberate suppression and erasure of knowledge by the Adeptus Mechanicus, leaves vast gaps in humanity's understanding of its ancient past. This obscurity opens the door to speculation that the Necrons, with their soulless, mechanical forms and their ancient, galaxy-spanning influence, could be linked to or even be the legendary Men of Iron. The Necrons currently reawakening in the 41st millennium would have no knowledge of any Necron involvement. During the cybernetic rebellion in the Dark Age of technology, if such an involvement ever occurred, because of the unique nature of their reawakening process and the passage of tens of thousands of years. When the Necrons entered their great sleep millions of years ago, they sealed themselves away in stasis tombs, awaiting the time when they could emerge to reclaim the galaxy. This long slumber, combined with the compartmentalized and isolated nature of their tomb worlds, means that each Necron dynasty is largely unaware of events that transpired outside their own tombs during their dormancy. If some Necron forces or technology were indeed inadvertently involved in the cybernetic rebellion of the Men of Iron, those Necrons would have operated independently, without the knowledge or oversight of the greater Necron dynasties. By the time the main Necron forces began to reawaken in the 41st millennium, any Necrons that may have played a role during that ancient rebellion would have been long forgotten, their activities lost in the depths of history. The passage of tens of thousands of years, compounded by the chaos and destruction that characterized the end of the Dark Age of technology, would ensure that no records of such involvement survived. Moreover, the cybernetic rebellion was such a catastrophic event that humanity, in its desperate bid to survive, systematically erased all traces of the Men of Iron. The Imperium's subsequent zeal to suppress AI and obliterate any remnants of this dark chapter further ensured that any records, technologies, or memories linking the Necrons to the Men of Iron were completely lost. As a result, the Necrons of the 41st millennium would emerge with no knowledge of any connection to the Men of Iron, and all evidence of such a link, if it ever existed, would have been wiped out in the fires of that terrible conflict. This comprehensive erasure of history leaves only fragmented myths and distorted memories, obscuring the truth of the past and leaving the Necrons and the Men of Iron as two distinct and seemingly unrelated entities. In the minds of those who now walk the galaxy, one might also ask why important Necron leaders such as Trazyn the Infinite, or Orican the Diviner have made no mention of the Men of Iron or the cybernetic revolt of it involved Necron. Trazyn the Infinite, renowned for his vast collection of historical artifacts and his obsession with preserving the relics of the past, might not possess any knowledge of a potential connection between the Necrons and the Men of Iron for several reasons. First, despite his extensive travels and his ability to collect a wide array of technological and cultural marvels from across the galaxy, Trazyn could easily have been elsewhere in the Milky Way during the period of the cybernetic rebellion. The galaxy is vast, and even the most far-reaching Necron dynasties, including Trazyn's, were scattered across countless worlds, meaning that he might not have been in close proximity to any events related to the Men of Iron. Additionally, the technological achievements of humanity during the Dark Age of technology were so advanced that even Trazyn, a master of Necron technology and an unparalleled collector of the galaxy's wonders, might have viewed them with disgust and caution. Humanity's innovations during this era might have even rivaled the might of the Necron Empire, and the sheer scale and power of these technologies, particularly the manipulation of Necron men of iron, could have led Trajan to fear the potential of humanity from this forgotten epoch. Such fear might have driven him to avoid direct confrontation with any remaining human technological artifacts from that time, as even he could recognize that the Dark Age of technology represented a high point in human ingenuity, an era where humans briefly stood as titans in the galaxy, commanding machines and sciences that could challenge even the Necrons. Given the catastrophic collapse of the Dark Age of technology and the subsequent erasure of so much historical knowledge, even Trajan's extensive archives may lack detailed information about the Men of Iron. The Imperium's zealous efforts to obliterate all records of AI, combined with the destruction of countless worlds and the loss of ancient knowledge, would have left little for Trajan to uncover. Thus, any connection between the Necrons and the Men of Iron, if it ever existed, might have slipped through his grasp, buried in the annals of a history deliberately lost to time. Orican the Diviner, one of the most enigmatic and aloof Necron cryptexts, is a master of chronomancy who can foresee events across time. If Orican had foreseen the possibility that the Necrons were manipulated as the Men of Iron during humanity's Dark Age of technology, it is entirely plausible that he would have chosen to keep such knowledge to himself. His nature is one of extreme secrecy, driven by an almost obsessive pursuit of his own cryptic goals. Given his aloofness and tendency to operate independently of other Necron dynasties, Orican would likely have distanced himself from any widespread revelations or discussions about Necron involvement in the Men of Iron rebellion. Moreover, Orican is known for being deeply disliked by many other Necron dynasties. His ability to predict future events, combined with his manipulative tendencies and arrogance, has earned him a reputation for being untrustworthy and difficult to work with. Even if Orican did possess knowledge about the Necrons being connected to the Men of Iron, his peers would likely dismiss or ignore his claims, either out of spite or skepticism. His foresight, while formidable, is often seen as self-serving, and many Necron lords are suspicious of his motives, making it highly unlikely that they would take any such revelation seriously. Thus, Orican's combination of foresight, secrecy, and alienation from other Necron dynasties would leave him in possession of critical knowledge, but with no desire to share it and no one willing to listen. His own disdain for interacting with others, coupled with the other dynasty's hatred for him, creates an environment where even significant revelations, such as the manipulation of the Necrons as the Men of Iron, would remain buried in the isolated mind of the diviner, unknown to the wider Necron race. No Necron in their right mind would ever want to admit, much less hint, that their kind was once subjugated by the minor and comparatively primitive human race, especially not to the Silent King. The Necrons are a proud and ancient race, having ruled the galaxy millions of years before humanity even emerged. Their entire identity is built upon a legacy of dominance, immortality, and superiority over all other life forms. To suggest that they were manipulated or controlled by humans during the Dark Age of technology, when humanity was still a fledgling galactic power, would be a profound humiliation. The very notion of Necrons, beings who once fought in the war in heaven and subjugated the godlike Ketan, being subservient to humans, would be considered an unforgivable disgrace, particularly to the Silent King. Such an admission would go against the core of Necron pride and their belief in their rightful place as the galaxy's rulers. For a Necron to even entertain the idea of revealing this to the Silent King would be a betrayal of their race's entire history, and an acknowledgement of a vulnerability they would rather deny. This deeply ingrained sense of superiority means that even if such a subjugation occurred, no Necron would willingly acknowledge it, as the shame would be too great to bear, especially in the eyes of their dynastic leaders and the Silent King himself. In conclusion, the lack of concrete historical records, the vast temporal distance of 20,000 years, and the deliberate erasure of knowledge surrounding the Men of Iron create fertile ground for speculation about a potential connection between the Necrons and the Men of Iron. Figures like Trajan the Infinite and Orican the Diviner, despite their immense knowledge, would have been either unaware of such a link or deliberately kept it secret due to their personal motives and distrust from other Necron dynasties. Additionally, the Necron's deep pride and superiority would ensure that no Necron, especially in the eyes of the Silent King, would ever acknowledge being subjugated by humanity during the Dark Age of technology. The overwhelming shame of such an admission would be unthinkable, further shrouding any potential connection between the Necrons and the Men of Iron in mystery and silence.